Tuesday, March 10th, does not simply open a new rhythm for Beyond the Gates. It pushes a whole cluster of characters into a state of erosion shaped by suspicion, anger, and choices that no longer allow an easy retreat. On the surface, everything still carries the appearance of opportunity, relationships being repaired, and duties that need to be handled. But beneath that polished exterior runs a widening crack of unease. For Donnie, Vanessa, Smitty, and the people orbiting them, this is no longer a moment for pretending that things are fine. It is the moment when each of them begins to understand that what threatens them is not only circumstance, but also the very weaknesses they have spent so long trying to hide. Donnie faces the upcoming photo shoot with the feeling not of a woman being offered an opportunity, but of someone being pushed onto a stage where one wrong step could turn her into entertainment for everyone who has been waiting to see her fall. The invitation to become the face of Tatum Stewart's new line should have been a moment of validation, proof that her magnetism has never truly disappeared, that she can still walk into the light with the presence of a woman who once made entire rooms go silent. But the closer the shoot gets, the more she is haunted by the fear that she was not chosen for her strength at all, but for the symbolic value of a name that once drew attention, stirred controversy, and knew how to keep the public staring. That realization feeds the anger simmering inside her. She is angry at the people smiling encouragement while perhaps secretly hoping to see her tremble under the camera's gaze. She is angry at the way this world calls women icons when it needs them, only to tear them apart the instant they show the smallest crack. But more than anything, Donnie is angry with herself for letting fear sink so deeply into her that it has begun to shake something that should have belonged to her without question. Andre's presence only makes the situation more complicated. He is one of the few people who seems to genuinely see Donnie's potential, yet for that exact reason every word of encouragement from him becomes dangerous. Donnie can no longer tell whether Andre is trying to pull her back toward the strongest version of herself, or whether he is being driven by something more private, a deeper urge to become the one person who can reach her when she is at her most vulnerable. That suspicion is not born of paranoia, but of bitter experience with men who have used care as a tool for influence. She wants to trust Andre, but trust now feels like a luxury. If she accepts his help, she fears becoming someone who needs to be saved. If she rejects it, she risks pushing herself straight into the ending her enemies have wanted all along, a Donnie who hesitates, retreats, and unintentionally confirms that her time has passed. That inner conflict turns her anger inward, making every moment of reflection feel like a battle between pride and pain. On another front, Vanessa is beginning to see the cost of entering Joey's orbit. At first, she chose honesty. She did not hide, did not feel ashamed, did not hand anyone else the right to decide who she should love. She wanted to prove that she was smart enough to enter a scandalous relationship without losing her dignity or position. But life does not operate according to Vanessa's pride. Small opportunities begin slipping through her fingers, not through dramatic public attacks, but through coolness, avoidance, and doors quietly closing in silence. That is the kind of punishment that drives a person mad, because no one steps forward to openly condemn her. Yet everyone seems to have silently agreed that she must pay for being with Joey. She hates the feeling of being reduced to an extension of him. She hates that all the intelligence, effort, and sharpness that once helped her stand tall are now being overshadowed by the filthy reputation of a man she chose to stand beside. And underneath all that fury sits a question Vanessa still has not dared to answer honestly. Is she defending love? Or is she defending a mistake simply because she has gone too far to admit she may have been wrong? The return of her daughter leaves Vanessa with nowhere to hide. This is not a soft reunion, but an electrically charged collision between two generations of women, one trying to live according to her own choices, and one who no longer has the patience to watch her mother keep steering herself into danger. Vanessa can survive society's judgment, can harden herself against whispers about Joey, but she struggles to stay composed when the rejection comes from her own blood. What hurts most is not merely the disagreement, but the possibility that her daughter may be seeing something Vanessa has deliberately refused to see. If Joey does not love her the way she believes he does, if he only enjoys the thrill of being chosen by a woman like Vanessa despite all the scandal around him, then the entire wall of defiance and confidence she has built will collapse into a humiliating act of self-deception. That fear does not soften Vanessa. It makes her sharper, more fragile, and therefore more likely to react in destructive ways. She may cling to Joey even harder, just to prove everyone wrong. And that is where the true tragedy lies, in a brilliant woman using all her strength to protect the very thing that is destroying her. Smitty, meanwhile, is being stretched thin between professional responsibility and the increasingly obvious emptiness in his private life. The investigation into the plasma ring is no longer just another case file. It has become a lens through which he views everything with suspicion, including his own home. Martin returns from his business trip, but that return brings no sense of reconnection. Instead, it exposes a distance that has been growing for far too long. Smitty no longer needs speeches about presence, because what exhausts him is the false version of it. The hollow performance of a man who is physically there but absent from everything that matters. He is not angry simply because Martin is busy. He is angry because Martin seems to believe that continuing to play the role of the proper husband is enough to erase the fractures between them. Meanwhile, Smitty feels more and more as though he is living beside a man whose life is partitioned into too many locked-off compartments, whose priorities almost never place family first. His awkward conversation with Nicole therefore becomes more dangerous than it first appears. They are usually so aligned that even one uneasy discussion is enough to signal that the problem is no longer small. Nicole sees in Smitty something Martin may not even care to notice: the exhaustion of a man who is not only drained by work, but worn out by having to behave as though his marriage is still functioning normally. Even if their conversation begins with work, or even drifts toward Nicole's own romantic life, its real destination remains the same: the quiet loneliness slowly splitting this family from the inside. Smitty may not say it outright yet, but he is moving closer to the most painful question of all. Is Martin truly still in this marriage? Or is he merely maintaining it as part of a political image he cannot afford to lose? Once that question is clearly asked, there will be no returning to the old, comfortable illusion. At the same time, pressure across the DMV continues tightening around everyone. Jacob lives with the fear of being exposed after completing a delivery for Grayson at Garland Memorial. The real problem is not whether he finished the task, but that he was seen, recognized, and marked. From that moment on, every step he takes carries the risk of everything being blown open. That tension does not exist in isolation. It feeds a larger atmosphere in which everyone feels that one small mistake could detonate an entire network of lies, compromises, and cover-ups. Within that environment, Shanice chooses to stand beside Ted with professional skill and with a kind of love that is slowly becoming commitment. On the surface, that choice looks noble, but it is also dangerous. Because when a woman puts both her heart and her expertise on the line to support a man in trouble, she is not only helping him survive a crisis. She is placing herself directly in the path of whatever consequences his problems may bring. This episode, then, is not simply about personal choices. It is the widening shape of a war in which everyone wants to hold on to dignity, love, career, family, and control. Yet the harder they try to hold on, the more tightly they grip the very things already slipping away. Donnie is torn between pride and the fear of being exposed as no longer what she once was. Vanessa turns defiance into armor against a relationship that is eating away at both her status and her family. Smitty moves quietly toward the moment when he may have to admit that love cannot survive on polished speeches about responsibility alone. And in every storyline, the most frightening enemy is not an outsider. It is the instant these characters realize that they have been cooperating with their own downfall for a very long time. As anger, wounded pride, and fear of betrayal all ignite at once, Beyond the Gates is no longer just telling the story of a turbulent day. It is laying the groundwork for retaliation, ruthless choices, and mistakes that may not be reversible.